Yo, yo.
Purchase your tracks today.
Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I'm your host, the Soap Man, in full effect. Now, I want to tell you this story. It's a really good story. It's a great story, like almost Game of Thrones like. The only difference is Game of Thrones was make-believe, and this story is told from a historic perspective, as though it was true. It's the story of three men: a prophet named Samuel, a man named Saul, who would become the first king of Israel, and a man named David, who will be the second king of Israel. And these three men engage in this trilogy of power, so to speak. It's like this triangle of power, where they vie for power and pass power back and forth along between each other. The only problem is, I can't tell you this story without setting the scene properly. And in order to do that, I have to tell you how the book of Judges ends, because this story begins in the book of Samuel, okay? So when we last left off talking about Samson and Samson's revenge. And so after Samson, the book of Judges continues about how, like, the children of Israel descend into this spiral descent into chaos. And so I want to tell you about that in this episode because we can't just jump to Samuel, because it just don't end like that, you know. But the whole book of Judges in total is about the children of Israel's spiral into this descent of chaos and sin, to where they get away from God. And during this time period, God raises up these judges. Even though they disobedient, he still raises up these judges to save them. Now, it kind of starts with Joshua. If you remember Joshua, he wasn't a judge, but to me, he was kind of like the first judge. He was the leader of the children of Israel during this transition from Egypt into the land of Canaan. And long gone are the days of Joshua and his teacher Moses. Long gone are the days of Moses and his protege Joshua. So, Moses and Joshua, they stand in a class all by themselves. And, after Moses and Joshua, you had, some of the first judges was Othniel. And Othniel was a stand-up guy. He was a man of God, and he did well. He was a good judge. He judged Israel well. After him, you had the likes of Ehud. Remember Ehud, the left-handed assassin? Ehud was crafty and clever and kind of underhanded, but he was still he was still a man of God. He still led Israel. He was still a decent man compared to what's coming, compared to, the latter end of the judges. After Ehud, remember Shamgar, he failed. He defeated 600 Philistines with a staff. Can't tell me that boy wasn't about his mustard, okay? I don't know what kind of upstanding guy he was, but we still early in the days, and what you're gonna see is the further we get away from Moses, the further into descent and disobedience and worshiping false gods and worshiping the gods of the Canaanite, the more that you see. After Shamgar, you had the prophetess Deborah. And she was a saint. By God, she was a prophetess. So we still in kind of the early stages of the judges, the first, 3, 4, 5 judges. And they seem to be good judges. They seem to be, people of faith. They worship the one God, the God of Israel, the God of Moses. They, for the most part, keep to the laws. But by the time you get to Gideon, remember Gideon and his brave 300 and the clever plan he came up with to, destroy the Midianites that had overrun the land. Gideon started off, he was timid and faithless. Gideon was kind of like a coward. And it's here where you start to see the judges kind of start to fall off, and that bravery and that faith and all the stuff that you would expect, you know what I'm saying? People, that was like all the stuff that Moses taught. You see that kind of like fall to the wayside. You see it before now, but you see it even more by the time Gideon come along. Gideon is a man of little faith, to say the least. So after Gideon, well, really, these first five, like I said before, these first five, they seem to be pretty stand-up judges, for the most part. They, at least what we would expect. But after these first 4 or 5 judges, you see this true descent. I mean, you saw it before. The book of Judges always start off with, and the children of Israel were disobedient. And then the neighbors start to conquer them. And then God raises up a judge. And after that judge rules and protects them for a number of years or a period of time, they fall right back into their old ways, worshiping the gods of the Canaanites, pissing God off, and God have to raise them up a new judge. So after these first 4 or 5 judges, you see them in a row right here: Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, and Gideon. After these first 5 judges, you got the likes of Abimelech. He killed 70 of his brothers in an attempt to take power and rulership over one of the major cities of the Israelite nations. And remember Jephthah? He offered his daughter up to God as a sacrifice. This is how far the children of Israel have failed from the teachings of Moses. They don't even understand the God they worship. They have become no different than their Canaanite neighbors, worshiping their gods, practicing their same traditions. And Jephthah is a perfect example of that. Nowhere in God's teachings or laws has he ever required or accepted human sacrifice. And Jephthah offers up his one and only daughter as a human sacrifice. Such is the confusion and descent into chaos in Israel at this time. So basically, that's what the book of Judges is about. It's about the children of Israel in this new land. They disobedience, they lack of faith, and their subsequent and eventual and inevitable descent into chaos until they hit rock bottom. After Jephthah, and don't forget the minor judges, that the Bible talked about. We don't have much information on them, but let's not forget them. By the time we get to Samson, Israel has just about had it. They barely indistinguishable from their Canaanite neighbors. Samson himself is no man of God, to say the least. Samson is carefree, careless, arrogant, a cold-blooded murderer if he loses his temper. And this is the hero of the story. So by the time that Samson is a judge, and the Bible says he judges Israel for 20 years, by the time Samson is a judge, Israel has descended into total chaos, and they are just about ready to hit rock bottom. So after the story of Samson, Samson judges Israel for 20 years. We just about at the beginning of the end. Judges 21 and 25 reads, and in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. This is the beginning of the end. And the Bible keeps saying this verse over and over in the last couple chapters of the book of Judges, it keeps saying, in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. It's trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you it was no law, no unity. The only time the tribes of Israel came together was when somebody got in trouble or when somebody was attacked. It's kind of like the American Negro. Think of it that way. At least that's the way I think of it. Anywho, so this is the time period. In those days, there was no king, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. There was no unity, there was no law, and there was no real one God that everybody worshiped. So after Samson's story, the Bible goes into this weird story about this dude named Micah, and it starts off where he takes his mom's money. She's looking for it. She's distressed, and he gives it back, and she's happy. It's a real weird story. I'm gonna spare you, okay? So anyway, in this story, as you can see on the slide I've provided here for you, Micah's tribe is from the tribe of, Micah resides in the territory of the tribe of Ephraim. You gonna notice that you gonna hear the word Ephraim a lot. I told you before, Ephraim is always fighting. They always up in the mix. That's why I rank them high in my ranking of the 12 tribes. So Micah is living within the tribe of Ephraim. And in this story, him and his family accumulate this, a lot of wealth, and they purchase a lot of these idols, made of, expensive material. And the tribe of Dan needs I think it's 600 men from the tribe of Dan, they coming through that area on their way to another area up north. If you see my arrow here, another area up north, and they have to pass by where Micah lives, and they take all his stuff as they passing by, and as they leave, they go and totally annihilate and destroy these peaceful people that's living in the far north, and they take their territory. It's a really weird story. I don't understand it. I don't understand the significance of it. But I just had to let you know that before we moved on. And it's another important thing that I want you to know when we move, before we move on into the story of Samuel. After this story of Micah, the Bible goes into another weird story about this Levite. And this Levite, the tribe of Levi, they have no territory. Their territory is within all the territories of the tribes of Israel, because they are the priestly tribe. So it talks about this Levite, and this Levite has a wife who the Bible says plays the harlot on him. And so this Levite goes back to retrieve. Sorry, I should have showed this slide. This is the slide of Micah getting his stuff took by the tribe of Dan. So you see, this small sliver right here is the tribe of Benjamin. And this Levite's wife is from Benjamin, Judah. So she's from somewhere between Benjamin and Judah. And Judah and Benjamin, they tight. They joined at the hip. So he goes back to fetch his wife. Here's another slide just showing you how Benjamin is kind of connected to Dan. It's a very small tribe. It's the smallest of the 12 tribes. So this Levite, whose wife plays the harlot on him, she flees back to her hometown in Benjamin, Judah. And he goes to fetch her. The Bible says he goes and talks kindly to her. And he speaks with her father, and he's happy, and he's going to send her back with him. So after spending 3 days and 3 nights with the family, he leaves with his wife, and he's headed home. And he's passing through Gibeah, which is in Benjamin. And let me explain to you what happens. Here's another slide just showing you. I'm making a point right here that I didn't want to skip over. In past videos, you heard me talk about how I ranked the tribes of Israel from toughest to least toughest. And I said the tribe of Benjamin, which was the smallest tribe, was the second toughest. And I'm about to tell you why. So this Levite, on his way home with his wife, he has to pass through Gibeah, which is in Benjamin. And while there, he's staying with the old man. The old man invites him into his house because it's not safe to sleep on the streets. And people back then, it was common to sleep on the streets. But this old man told him, he told this certain Levite, nah, you don't want to sleep on these streets. It's dangerous. Come stay in my house. So the Levite did. Here, let me look at you for a minute. I want you to see me for a minute. So this Levite, he goes and stays with this old man. Next thing you know, it's people beating at the door. The men of Benjamin have surrounded the house, and they demanding that the old man bring this newcomer, this stranger, out of his house so they can violate him. Yeah, a bunch of men surrounded the house and wanted to violate the Levite. So the old man says, yo, I got a daughter in here. He got a wife. Take them, do what you want to do. But man, you can't do this dude like that. So that's what the men settle for. They take the Levite's wife and they rape her repeatedly. The Bible says until nearly daybreak. A horrendous act even for these times. The Levite's wife dies on the doorstep. The Bible says her hands on the threshold. These men from Benjamin literally raped her to death. The Levite, helpless, what could he do? Enraged, he threw his dead wife's body over his donkey and rode home. When he got home, he chopped the body up into 12 pieces and sent a piece to each tribe of Israel. When the elders got his message, they gathered to find out what was the meaning of this. The Levite explained himself, explained all that had happened. Judges chapter 20, verses 13 through 17. Before I get to that, let me tell you what happens. The other tribes, all of the other 11 tribes, they gathered themselves together against Benjamin. They demand that the men who did this be brought to justice. They demand that these men be brought forth so that they can be put to death. But Benjamin ain't having it. The smallest tribe of them all, they rally to these rapist sides. They like, these dudes, Benjamites, you ain't finna come up in here and put nobody to death. Judges chapter 20, verses 13 through 17 reads, but the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities of Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time of the cities 26,000 men that drew sword, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Look, I have this in big, bold, red print. It says, among all this people, there were 700 chosen men, left-handed, southpaws. Every one could sling stones at an hair breadth and not miss. So let me explain that to you. The smallest tribe, the tribe of Benjamin, when the 11 other tribes got together and demanded justice out of these rapists who had killed this woman, the tribe of Benjamin rallied together around their citizens to go to war. They produced 26,000 men. The Bible says that drew swords. Besides them, there were the 700 men at the main city of Gibeah. These other 26,000 men came from the cities surrounding Gibeah, but it was 700 from the city of Gibeah. Then the Bible says, out of all these people, the 26,000 plus the 700 in Gibeah, it says out of all these people, were 700 chosen men. Everyone could sling a stone at an hair breadth and not miss. That means 700 out of all these troops was dead eye bullshot with the slingshot. Now, why is this important? Why am I making a big deal out of this? Because a certain young shepherd from Judah is about to come along, and he's pretty handy with the slingshot too. In fact, his skill with the slingshot is going to propel him into stardom and fame to the end of time. And we're going to talk about that in a few episodes to come. I don't want to get, off on a tangent. So check this out. It says, and the men of Israel, beside Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these men of war. That means that these 26,700 men of Benjamin were staring down at 400,000 men of the 11 other tribes. 400,000 against 26,000. I want you to, grasp those numbers, because I'm about to show you why Benjamin is the second toughest out of all the 11 tribes, even though it's the smallest tribe. They are facing damn near 500,000 people. They got 26,000. Okay, so like I said before, the tribe of Benjamin, they rally around these murderers, these rapists, because they Benjamites. And they like, you can relate. They like, you're not about to come in our territory and smoke nobody. No, we not giving nobody up. That's just how it is. So these men, these 26,700 Benjamites, they prepare for battle. And remember, 700 of them, the Bible said, is so good with a slingshot, they can knock a hair off your head at will. They just cold with it. Marksmen. So Judges chapter 20 verses 19 through 21 reads, and the children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men. So what that means is, those 400,000 men from the 11 tribes, from the combined might of the 11 tribes, went out against them 26,700 Benjamites and got their hat handed to them. Even though Benjamin was the smaller tribe, they was the more powerful tribe. I told you before, the tribe of Benjamin, they can fight, and they fight dirty. Remember, Ehud, one of the early judges, the left-handed assassin, was a Benjamite. Benjamin fight different. They can fight, but they also fight dirty. Remember, they got 700 bullseye marksmen that can hit you, pop you in your eye at will. These are modern day snipers with the most modern day sniper rifle. And so this tribe of Benjamin, this army of Benjamites, they come out and destroy, how many it say? 22,000 men of the opposing army. So they win the day. Judges chapter 20 verses 24 through 25 says, and the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. All these drew sword. So what does that mean? That means that even the combined might of all the other 11 tribes, they cannot beat the smallest tribe. It's 11 against 1. And the one is winning. The book of Judges ends with these words, in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. The beginning of the end starts with those words, And the book of Judges ends with those
Purchase
words.
all tracks.
I didn't want to skip over this because I always like to back up what I'm saying. I said before when I ranked the 12 tribes of Israel from toughest to least toughest, I said Judah was the toughest, hands down. But I said the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe, was the second toughest out of all the 12 tribes. And I hope I just proved it to you. I took a whole episode to do it. Yo, we've come to this part of the episode where I thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. If you're new to this channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. Yo, I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel. If you got any comments, leave them in the comment section. If you got any insults, leave them in the comment section. If you want to flirt with your boy, if you want to chop it up, if you want to be like, nuh-uh, nuh-uh. If you want to be like, yeah, soap man, go soap man, go soap man. Yo, leave it in the comment section. I'll see y'all next time, next episode, Soap Man out.